What's up, guys? I'm here to talk to you about the vaccine and what's going on with the COVID rates and try to clear up some confusion. I have a lot of friends in the medical industry who are COVID-19 doctors, nurses, people I personally grew up with. My father was a medical doctor, so I have some access to certain pieces of information that I think a lot of people might benefit from. To make a long story short, one of the reasons why the COVID rate's going up higher is because those who are vaccinated are not wearing their masks hardly ever. So it's much easier for them to contract COVID-19 or some variant of it and then pass it on to others. And because they're vaccinated, that vaccine is doing its job to try to fight off them having symptoms from it. But they can still catch it and pass it on to others, which has happened to many people. And you've probably heard in the news of breakthrough cases like Oscar De La Hoya, Jesse Jackson and his wife, most recently Chris Rock, who were all vaccinated, and after a few months of being vaccinated, their antibodies started to decrease naturally, and the strength of the vaccine is starting to wear off a little, and they did get very, very sick and were hospitalized from it. Somebody like Bill Maher, for example, also got it, but he had the vaccine and it was still very potent in him, so he was asymptomatic. He didn't know that he even had it. He was feeling great, he said. So the vaccine was working for him to fight it off. Some people obviously are genetically stronger at being able to fight it off, and you've heard of some symptoms where people are asymptomatic who are before the vaccine even came out. That's a very small amount of people, but somehow their genetics are able, or their immune system was higher and able to fight it off. What they're not talking about in the media is things like vitamin D3, zinc, and the amount that you need in your body to fight it off. So I'm going to try to give you some tips of how to fight off catching COVID-19 as well as other, viruses and things by simply building your immune system to a very maximum peak level. If you live in a city like I do here in New York, a lot of the buildings are blocking the sun, and you're not getting the same kind of sun that normally people, let's say, who live in the country, are getting, or even in, foresty areas like Pennsylvania or New Jersey or even in the Hamptons, area, you're getting more direct sunlight, right? So a lot of people who live in cities, Chicago, New York, etc., their vitamin D levels are very low. So you want to take mass amounts of vitamin D3, which have almost no side effects, almost. And again, I've never even heard of anybody having side effects, but if you exceed 100 in your vitamin D levels in your system, yeah, that could not, that could be a problem. But it takes so much work to build to a level 100. So when I had my vitamin D tested, it was 4, which is that of like a 97-year-old man, because I wasn't getting any sun. So I started, trying to get a little bit of sun, and that helped slightly build it up a little bit, maybe to a 10. But again, the average vitamin D levels that you need is basically, it says from the books in 1953, the medical books, you want to have a vitamin D level of about 35. That's from 1953. That has nothing to do with today's time or today's society or what we're going through today. So all the medical doctors I spoke to that, again, work in the COVID-19 emergency rooms have said that they have yet to see one person have COVID with over a vitamin D level of 60 to 70. I've just built mine up to 100. It took a long time, but I was able to do it at the end very quickly when I learned that you take vitamin D3, the supplement, with zinc, with about 30 to 50 milligrams of zinc. So you take them together, and that's how it absorbs in your body. Also with avocado, or if you can have eggs, things like that. That's what helps it absorb in the body. Without it, if you only take the vitamin D3 alone without the zinc or without the avocado or eggs, in my case, I can't have eggs, but, it just does not build up hardly at all in your system. So you must have that combination for it to absorb. That's how you build a higher immune system that fights it off. Which is very, very important to do. Also, there's a huge mistake where people don't realize you cannot mix vitamin C or citrus with zinc at the same time. You can't do it. If you buy something called Zicam, which is predominantly made of zinc, it says do not mix with vitamin C or citrus because it stops the absorption of the vitamin zinc entering your body. So if you're going to have vitamin C and zinc, you must do it 2 hours apart. That's very, very, very crucial to the absorption process. And I don't know why people are not being educated about natural ways to protect your body. So that's a very important kind of thing. And I know there's a lot of people who are scared to take the vaccine because of the small percentage of people that have had, potentially bad side effects to it, like blood clotting or, thrombosis or, myocarditis and things, enlargement of the heart, and, clots and strokes and things like that. But again, that's less than like 1% of the people who've taken the vaccine have had those symptoms. But if you're worried that you're one of those vulnerable people, I understand. But then protect the hell out of yourself and wear a mask, because a mask is actual protection if it's an N95 level mask. It's a thicker mesh. It's thicker. It's like wearing a shield over your face or wearing a condom when you have sex. It's basically just protecting you from being able to inhale through your nose or your mouth. So when people, only cover their mouth, that's ridiculous because you're breathing through your nose. And these are the two entry points, or your nose and your mouth. So you can go to either nostril or your mouth. You need to protect that if you're wearing a mask in a crowded area where you don't know where the people have been, where there could be COVID outbreaks and things. As you see right here in New York, they tried to open Aladdin, the musical on Broadway, and it closed after one day. Then they reopened it the next day, and it closed again the next day. Now it's going to be closed for the next 2 weeks. Because one person who was vaccinated had no symptoms, because again the vaccine was beating down the virus from replicating, but they were still contagious and able to pass it to others. So they had to shut down the entire situation, and that's where the reality of a mask has nothing to do with taking away people's rights or their freedoms or anything. It's a very, very logical thing to wear a thick mask. Again, if I put a t-shirt over my face, look, you could see through it. You see how thin the t-shirt is? That's not going to help. That's too thin. The fabric's too thin. If you look under a microscope or even a magnifying glass, you'll see that the fabric has little holes in it. That's why it's breathable. It's thin. You need a thicker mask that's still breathable, but that enables you to have enough protection where if you were to inhale through the mask or be in an area where there is COVID-19, it kind of bounces off the mask or it sticks to the front of the mask and doesn't go inside. Again, we have rules in existence. You need to wear a seatbelt when you're in a car. You need not to drive through a red light. If you're around a group of people, a lot of people in a crowded indoor place who could be COVID positive, and you're worried about you potentially catching it or giving it to someone if you're a carrier and don't know it and you're not getting tested to find out, when again those tests are still 50-50, right? You want to wear a mask, just logically. It has nothing to do with being a Democrat or a Republican or any of that nonsense. It's just pure logic and science. It's just that simple. It's just logical. If you cover it, you cover it. If you don't, you don't. If you don't care and you believe that you're strong enough to be able to fight through it, it has nothing to do with your strength level. Let me tell you, I have friends who have died of COVID-19 who were in good health, who were in their 30s, and that is tragic. In fact, one of the comic book artists who drew Batman, a young guy in his 30s, got gravely ill from COVID-19 and passed away a few weeks ago. It's a horrendous thing. It just ravages some people, not all, but some people. It's a terrible thing. I've lost many friends and my friends' friends, in total about 10 people who were young and in good health without pre-existing conditions are dead. And that's the reality of it. And it is a tragedy. And we have to think about other people besides our own protection. So, it is very important, even if you're vaccinated, if you're going to go in a crowded area, we don't know who's vaccinated and who's not. There's a lot of people who have allergies to the vaccine, to the ingredients, and they cannot be vaccinated because of that. There's elderly people who have pre-existing conditions and can't be. So we got to think about them as well. And it's very important. This, again, has nothing to do with impinging upon someone's freedom. The reality is that we got to be smart about this. And I wish that there was no divide on this issue, and that people could just understand, the way this thing works. I don't think people are taking, those who have issue with wearing a mask, I don't think they take the time to research the actual real medical papers. And I'm going to give you a website where you can, if you'd like to, and that's scholar.google.com. That's specifically for medical doctors. And if you go to that specific Google site for scientists, medical doctors, you'll see the actual reports all around the world being shared there. And that is a very important thing to read and research. Another issue I wanted to tackle is in regards to getting vaccinated. You must understand that when you get any vaccine, whether it's the flu shot or a COVID-19 shot, your entire immune system is going into overdrive and being used. So you become the most vulnerable during that 2-week period. That's one of the reasons why they say to wait about 3 weeks before you get your second dose if you take Pfizer or Moderna. And it is incredibly important that during that time you build your strength levels. So before you get a vaccine, go to get tested, okay? And check your vitamin D levels and see where you're at, and build your vitamin D level to over 60 or 70 by taking a supplement. You can take 50,000 IUs, not milligrams, IUs, 50,000 IUs of vitamin D3 once a week until you build your immune system to about a 60 or 70. And then you could go down to a maintenance dose of about 5,000 IUs, I guess every other day or so, or however your body reacts to it. But get the test. It's a quick blood test. It takes a few seconds, and then you'll know what your level is. Also, before you get the vaccine, like my friends in Europe and Georgia, not the state, but out in Georgia near Russia, they give them a blood test. They take a blood test, and then they test them for their PT levels. They test them for their D dimer, D like David, D dimer, to make sure they don't have any pre-existing blood clot issues. I went for those tests to make sure I'm clear before considering the vaccine. So you should do that too. Then after you get your second dose, again, your immune system becomes vulnerable for 2 weeks. So you want to take your vitamin D3 with zinc, wait 2 hours, then take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C to build up your immune system as well. And vitamin K also is good. But again, if you take vitamin C, you could, if you have a sensitive stomach, take 500 milligrams of vitamin C in the day, and then 500 at night with a meal, both times. And again, you pee out vitamin C. It doesn't build in your system the way vitamin D does. So I hope that this helps kind of give you guys a little bit of clarity on what's going on and why certain situations seem odd. And again, there's been a lot of crazy chaos with the lunacy and the there's a lot of stuff doesn't make sense and is unfair. I mean, the way people are acting in Australia and those videos attacking innocent civilians because they don't wear a mask is ludicrous. This is not the way to handle it. It's just, I have so much complaints about what's been going on in the way that things have been handled. But just for your safety, build your immune system, do what's best for you. In public areas, especially like public transportation, like subways or buses or airplanes, yes, wear a mask. I know it's a pain in the ass. Who likes wearing a mask, right? I make superhero comic books, for God's sakes. Again, Graig Weich from BeyondComics.tv. Hello, follow, subscribe, and like. But the reality is, even as someone who makes superheroes that wear masks, we usually leave the mouth open so they can breathe, But again, look, I have terrible allergies and things like that, and I could breathe through the mask. It's not the worst thing in the world. You just wear it when you're around a ton of people, if you're in a very largely, crowded area. That makes sense to me. That's logical. But otherwise, let's not put anybody down. Let's have remote learning for kids as an option to those who are sensitive or vulnerable to it. And let's just take it from there, everybody. Let's just try to be good to one another and not be disparaging or put anybody down. Let's just be supportive and end this freaking thing once and for all. And then hopefully we can get back to normal. All right. Thanks a lot for watching, and I wish you all well. Peace.